As you push into the timber, it's going to push out that way, so that's why you always come inside of the line, so it allows for that movement. So I bought this thing, it's called a hinge drill. Really good bit of kit, it just makes the job a lot simpler. Okay, so first thing I'm going to check is the height of this door. I know that I'm good on the width. Obviously what I've had to do, I'm marrying it up to this existing height, so there might be a bit of variation. I might have to take a little bit off, so let's just do a double check. So anyway, we've got 2 meters and 32 there. And we've got 2 meters and 35. So with the 3mm, that's going to be probably about 2036. So that's going to leave a 3mm gap at the bottom. I'm quite okay with that because, as always, there's going to be flooring going down here, and it's always best to keep the door quite tight to the floor and then trim it off afterwards rather than just guess it. I'm quite okay with that. I'm not going to bother trimming it off at the moment because when they're laying the floor, the door's going to have to come off and you're going to trim the bottom of the door to suit the flooring. So I'm going to leave that as it is. So I'm going to crack on getting the hinges in. I'll take you through a process of that. Now we're ready to start fitting the door. Now the first thing I like to do is get these temporary door stops in. Now what that'll enable me to do is, after I've chiseled the hinges in, is to offer it up and make sure everything's lining up nice and sweet. So get your combination square, set it to the thickness of your door like so, grab your pencil, any way you like, always at the top and bottom, put a line down and go to the opposite side, put a line down to the bottom. Once again, just get your temporary blocks, offer it up to the line. Don't worry about the holes that the screws are going to make because obviously this is going to be covered by your casement or your slamming strip, whichever you want to call it. Now these are on, I can start housing in the hinges. Just from looking, I can see that they're going to sit like that, roller outwards. So I'll start getting that marked up and I'll just take you through the process, okay? Now what I always like to do is I just mark cheeky little H roughly where the hinges are going to go. Hinge, hinge, hinge. And like I say, it's just a point of reference for me. So that's completely optional. Going to get my door in, my door stand. This is a little thing that John made. Works pretty well, just something he banged up out of a few offcuts. So only thing is, because this door is only being oiled and not stained, and as this is a veneer, we've got to be really, really careful not to damage it in any way, shape or form, because if you dent veneer, there's no coming back from it. If it's solid oak, obviously you've got the option of sanding it out, but with this, if you put a large gash in this, then it's game over. So what we'll do, just get our cloth, line it over, making sure that the cloth is acting as a buffer between the timber, and that'll keep things nice and secure. So yeah, that's all ready to go. Rule of thumb, 6 inches from the top and 9 inches down from the bottom. I think the reason why they do that, I mean, don't quote me on this, is because when you look up at the hinge and you see the 6 inches, when you look down and it's also 6 inches, it doesn't look right because obviously perspective. So they put it 9 inches up because it's obviously a bit of a trick of the eye. Don't know this is something that, this was a fact down the pub thing that somebody told me, but it might be true. Tell me what you think. This is my top, there's my 6. Put a little cross, because that's going to tell me that the hinge has to sit that face of it. Go down to the other side, 9 inches. We're going to go for a 1.5 hinges, so there's going to be one in the middle, but I'll get the first 2 housed in first, and then I'll just measure that. Now when you're putting these hinges in, the important thing to remember is, on the hinges where the connectors meet, you always have the outside hinge to the frame and the inside hinge to the door. As you can see, they operate on 2 different levels. So you've got that one and that one on the outside, which is there, which is the bit that's going to go onto the frame. And then you've got the 2 internally, which is going to be on the door. So another thing, like I say, that's just another thing I've always done. I don't know if everyone does it the same, but that bit for the door, that bit for the frame. There's your first one, there's my top. Get your marking gauge and you set that to the thickness of your hinge. Get it somewhere near because you can always fine adjust it afterwards. That is now absolutely spot on. So lock it off and then mark your depth along where your hinge is going to go. Just come down there and take my marking gauge. Now that gives me the perfect depth to chisel into. So repeat the process at the top. And there we have it. So now we're ready to start chiselling in. I'm going to be doing it old school. I'm going to be using old chisel, traditional boxwood handle, and I've got my old mallet here. Bought these from a car boot sale, dead cheap. I mean, I do need to invest in a heavier mallet. I like this one because the handle was nice and long, but we'll manage. So I'll just take you through the process of this and hopefully it will turn out okay. Let's go. First step, position your chisel. You want to come probably about 1 millimetre into your line, because obviously you've got a wedge. What will happen is as you push into the timber, it's going to push out that way. So that's why you always come inside of the line. So it allows for that movement. You want to make sure you're cutting down to where your line is. This is the reason why we did that, so when you're chiseling, you know you're not A, either going too shallow, or B, going too deep, because if you go too shallow, you're going to have to repeat the process. It's a waste of time. And if you go too deep, you're going to make a mess housing in your hinge, which is going to mess around with your perimeters around the door. That's the reason why you do that, so it's absolutely spot on. So keep on doing this and keep cracking on. I've come down this line here, I've just come shy of the line. On this one I've been able to go spot on. Now the reason why I do that, because I want to be able to house this out, and the last thing I want to do is just get my chisel and just take that last millimetre off, and that's just going to make sure the line's nice and crisp. Like I say, once again, that's a personal preference, not an approved method. So next step is to do a thing called pairing. Down to your line. Then what I do, walk along. Okay, so ready to take it out and get it to the level I want. So we're just going to take my chisel, just level it off now, just tidy it up. Looking pretty good now. So as I said, the final bit I'm going to do is I'm just going to get to this, just go to this line here, just to make sure everything's absolutely spot on. So here we go. So let's grab our hinge, offer it up and see how it looks. Once again, like I say, that bit on the door, that bit on the frame. And there you go, you're not going to get much better than that. Probably just ease a little bit out in that corner, but apart from that I'm pretty happy. So yeah, nice one. Okay, so the next process, we're going to be drilling the holes to take the screws for the hinges. Now what I like to do, so I bought this thing, it's called a hinge drill. Really good bit of kit, it just makes the job a lot simpler. What it does, you can see the chamfered edge there, it sits in the hole of the hinge and it drills the hole bang on centre every single time. So obviously you can mark it and pilot drill it. It's okay if you go slightly into the notch of the hinge, but if it comes out it can start moving it around and you start getting gaps and it just turns it into a nightmare. So anyway, this is just something I like to use. So all it is 1, 2, then 3. Spot on every time. The next stage is to mark the hinges for the frame side, so just wedge this to keep everything in position. I'm happy with my margin there, that's 3mm. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mark out exactly where these are going to go. You can use a tape measure, but I always find it's actually just better to get the actual thing in there so you can see exactly what's going on. So that's just another personal preference. So once again, nice sharp pencil. Always mark top and bottom. Okay, so basically, repeat the process on the frames that we've just done on the doors. So let's go. So once again, get your depth gauge, set it. Okay, so these are now ready to start housing out. Should be a little bit easier actually, because these are outdoors and this is a nice soft wood frame. There you want it. Right, next stage, get the holes drilled for the hinges that are going on the frame sides. Exactly the same as the door. Offer them in. Okay, so next phase, screwing the hinges to the door, which will then enable me to offer the door up to the frame and get that in position. And then, like I say, just do some final dress work and that should be the door hung, ready for the lock keep, handle and the door jambs. Okay, so the door's on, so we're just going to give it a little close, just make sure we've got a good line all the way around. So here we go. And we're looking pretty good there. Nice even gap all the way down. Yeah, quite pretty pleased with that. Just on to the next phase, which is putting on the door handle and the door keep. So keep watching. Nice one.